Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 152 of Decentralized Revolution, the Mises Caucus podcast. My name is Nate Thurston. Aaron could not be here to co-host tonight, but I am joined by Angela McArdle, who's chair of the LP Mises Caucus, and Bonnie Freeman, who's host of Free Talk Live and wife of Ian Freeman, who is unfortunately still being held as a prisoner of war in the war on crypto right now. Bonnie and Angela, thank you for coming and hanging out with me tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Much.
So I wanted to start off with a little bit of the good news. I want to talk a lot about Ian, and I'm probably going to be asking some questions from the perspective of someone who doesn't know a whole lot about the case. I was talking to Angela about this. I think Ian's case has maybe been a little bit overlooked. I've kind of felt that way for a little bit now. So I want to make sure that we get everyone up to date on what exactly happened, why he is being held right now, why he's not home right now, how that all transpired and went down. I wanted to ask you first, Trump started his term by pardoning Ross Ulbricht, and we just saw that Roger Ver has reached an agreement to be freed. And I just wanted to know what it's like for you, Bonnie, seeing those things happen.
I voted for Trump just because I wanted him to free Ross. I think the kind of extra perspective I have as not just a libertarian, but a libertarian whose husband is in prison and not 2 life sentences plus 40 years, but wrongfully, and he shouldn't even be in there for a day, and he's going to be in there for a maximum of 8 years. I wanted to do absolutely anything I could to help get Ross Ulbricht out. Like everybody that I knew signed the petition and put stickers up that say Free Ross, and we all try to tell people about the case whenever possible. Like we brought it up on Free Talk Live so many times, and that's also how I learned about Ross's situation, was through Free Talk Live. So obviously it was a really important thing to lots of people I knew. And then when my husband was in prison wrongfully, it became even just like it's kind of like that it hits close to home. I would do not something immoral, which I'm not one of the libertarians that believe voting is inherently immoral, but I would have done a lot of different things to help get Ross out, and I really think that it's just about the principle. Like if I don't believe anybody should be wrongfully imprisoned, then definitely I think that we should all put effort into helping people who are wrongfully imprisoned get out.
Yeah.
And Angela, I think you were, some would say, pretty instrumental in helping Ross get released. From some people say,
Yeah.
And so I'm sure that felt great for you seeing that happen. And then any details you could fill people in on what just happened with Roger as well. I'll admit I was most familiar with Ross's case. I was less familiar with Roger's, and so any updates on that?
Yeah. So I first passed along word of Roger Ver, I think a little before the inauguration. And so at that time I was basically working with three presidential campaigns, for the last couple of months running up. I was working pretty closely with the Trump campaign. I was, believe it or not, doing volunteer work for Chase Oliver's campaign. And, I was obviously working with Kennedy because the National Party ran the Joint Fundraising Committee. So I was spinning a lot of plates. And, Roger and his team reached out to me and they're like, hey, do you think you can help us? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So I put in a good word, and I know that the Trump staff that I spoke to passed it along to him, to the DOJ. Like it started, but it was a little more challenging than Ross. I think a little bit more of an uphill battle for various reasons. But I just kept at it, over the last year, talking about how important it is. Libertarians care about him. We need to be able to celebrate a win in the midterms. People are griping and complaining, we got Ross out. They're so grateful for that, but we still have other people in prison. We have this Blanche memo by, Assistant Attorney General Todd Blanche that says we're going to end regulation via prosecution, which basically, you know, Biden would be like, you did this cryptocurrency Bitcoin thing. I don't like it. So straight to jail. So I was like, well, you know, you can make the Bitcoin people happy. You can make the libertarians happy. Like it's a win-win situation. Then maybe they won't, you know, behave like a bunch of animals who want to throw elections to Democrats in the midterms. And so hopefully they'll keep their promise on that, you know, with a couple of important races. But yeah, like finally, you know, it went from him facing to 109 years in prison to him paying a big fine. And I will take it. I will take the win, you know. And obviously, you know, during the course of those communications, Ian's name has come up. Roman Storm, Roman Sterlingov, you know, Samurai Wallet, like a lot of people. But Ian is really like he's next on the list.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. Before we get into Ian's case, and spend a lot of time on that, I wanted to ask, like, what was it? Because I'm not great on keeping up on all this. What was it about Roger's case that made it so much like harder even than Ross's?
Well, you know, Roger is he's been a polarizing figure in the Bitcoin community. He's a controversial figure. A lot of people love him. There were heated disagreements over Bitcoin Cash and the blockchain wars. My perspective on that, and generally people agreed with me, except for one guy who admitted to being like an IDF informant at the Bitcoin conference. I was like, that's fine, you know. But generally the perspective is that it doesn't matter what your position is on what size, you know, the blockchain block should be. No one should have the feds kick in their door, raid their attorney's office, and have attorney-client privilege basically just destroyed. And that the precedent of that is terrifying for the country, not just for Roger, not just for Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, like anyone. And you know, preaching that message over and over again, people started to sort of come around. You know, Bitcoiners are like, you know, they're like the rest of libertarians. They like to infight, and you know, so we just have to overcome it. But we did.
Yeah. Speaking of having people beat down their door, Bonnie, wow, I went to Free Ian Now and then saw the video at the top of the page, and that was some raid that they conducted to go after Ian, who, to the best of my knowledge, was not even being charged with any violent crimes whatsoever. That had to be just a
Yeah.
terrible situation to go through. First off, I'm really sorry that happened, but I do recommend everyone go see that. I mean, I'll ask a dumb question. What was that like? Had to be terrible.
Well, they did it in the middle of, well, in my opinion, the middle of the night, because it was like 5 a.m. But I guess some people wake up for work at that time. But they watch your house for months ahead of time. They actually had a camera installed on a telephone pole outside our house, watching us for months. Where in Discovery we got to see stuff like that said things like, the first time I ever visited Ian, they said like, there's a new car at the house and this is the license plate, and they found out who I was before like the raid or anything, before I was like publicly Ian's girlfriend or anything. And so they study you so they know the time you'll all be asleep. And it's a duplex, so there's another side of the house that I don't live on, that a co-defendant, Ian's really good friend Rich Paul, was sleeping over there, and also a completely innocent bystander roommate of his. And then on our side, Ian and I were asleep in our room, and we had another completely innocent bystander roommate on our side at the time. And they didn't do a call out. Like, we have a camera on lots of different angles of the house, and I just know they didn't do a call out. They threw a flashbang, and you could see everybody's faces in the video. They didn't do a call out. And the FBI, I'm only harping on that because the FBI agent, the head FBI agent at the time, her name was Catherine Tebow, she testified in Ian's trial, and she said that, it wasn't a no-knock raid because we have to do a call out, and we did do one. And then she said she doesn't like that. She was like, I don't like the insinuation that my FBI agents wouldn't have done it the right way, because I only work with very, very trustworthy, good people, and the whole room erupted with laughter when she said that in trial because it was just all libertarians there for Ian, and the judge yelled at him. But yeah, so they throw an explosive, like a flashbang is what they call it, into the backyard, and I don't even remember waking up. I like was just when the first thing I remember is walking. Like I'm walking behind Ian. I'm aware that there was something that woke us up, like a loud bang, and I'm holding my dog. Like I don't even remember picking him up. I was just holding my dog because he's a Chihuahua, so he's small. And when we get to the top of our stairs, there's somebody pointing a gun at us through the window and saying, "This is the FBI." And I always wondered if I would like what I would do in a situation like that. I feel like almost every libertarian has wondered, and I just had no option at all but to like comply with what he was saying. Like was screaming this. I'm not going to scream it, but he was saying like, "Put the dog down. It's the FBI." And I just put my dog down, and he starts walking down the stairs like he wanted to get away from all this like yelling and stuff. And they let Ian pick him up just to put him on the other side of this big pile of glass so he didn't walk through the glass.
Ugh.
But they made him just start walking outside. So it was like pitch black outside and 10 degrees, and my dog is just wandering off, and he's not like a dog like that. He's not supposed to just be in the road or anything. And there's like black SUVs driving everywhere. And they eventually get us outside. I'm like skipping so many details. I had to walk through some of that glass, and then I also had to put my feet in these boots that belong to Ian, just because they were screaming at me to put the boots on. I don't even know why. Like they were just like, "Put any boots on," and I was like, "These are Ian's," and they had glass inside them. They're like filled with glass, and they made us stand outside, like turn around and get handcuffed. And it wasn't for the first like 20-30 minutes of being awake when I first started thinking like, "Oh yeah, what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do in a situation like this?" And I thought, don't answer questions and ask if you're being detained. So I asked like my FBI agent, the one that was like standing there like guarding me, "Am I being detained?" And he said, "You're not being detained, you're being restrained." Like he had to think about.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like they all play stupid word games. And he said, "We need to find out if there's anything in the house that's going to hurt us. Is there?" And it's just so ridiculous. It's like it's just a house. We don't have a booby trap inside of it, but the reason that they gave for doing such a violent, insane raid that went on for hours and hours was just that my roommate on this side of the house that like I said was not involved in the selling of cryptocurrency at all. He was a friend of ours that lived here for a time and then left. He legally owned guns, and he owned a lot of guns because it's New Hampshire, and he's like a gun fanatic. He loves his guns. He like legally owns them, and that's just so like in New Hampshire, you don't have to have any kind of paperwork for them, but he has like extra paperwork. He's that kind of guy. Like he's like really knows his stuff with guns, and he had like 30 plus guns in his room, and they kept calling it an arsenal, and they cited that as the reason that they should be allowed to violently raid your house. So like if you're listening to this, if you're like a woman and your husband owns a gun or whatever, the police, you have the right to own a gun, but for whatever reason the FBI wants, they can make up and use it as an excuse to violently raid your house if they want to go after you. There was no, knocking on the door first and having a conversation. There was no sending a letter like a cease and desist to Ian or anything like that. And there's 3 completely innocent people and a dog involved. Not that I don't think Ian and Rich Paul were also innocent. They didn't do anything wrong at all, but they were the ones like the cops were going after, but they didn't care that there would be other people there. They also lied and said that they didn't know who I was that day at the trial. They said like, "We didn't know," like Ian's lawyer tried to make that a point. Like you shouldn't just raid houses of people innocently sleeping there. What did Bonnie have to do with all this? And that he was like trying to use me as like an emotional like point in his like story building of Ian's defense. And the FBI agent said, "We didn't know that she lived there or anything." And that's ridiculous because I saw the discovery where they said they knew it was my car. And right when the FBI agents first walked up to me to talk to me after I'd been handcuffed, they said, "Are you Bonnie Cruz, Ian Freeman's girlfriend?" So yeah, they're liars, and they'll lie about anything, even if it seems like pointless.
Well, the FBI they've fired close to 1,000 employees right now, but still need to do some cleaning up in that department.
Yeah, we need
Wow.
to get a list of some of the people that were there that day and who were involved in that, and do some disciplinary actions for sure. My assumption there is, one, they probably wanted to send a message
Yeah,
to everyone, and two, they had a lot of cool toys and they needed to justify having them.
Yeah. They
And
use
so
a bear cat, if you know what that is.
yeah, I know what one is now because I'm watching. I've got the website pulled up right now, and I'm watching this. I haven't seen a lot of Bearcats in my day, but um, entirely unnecessary
it's
to say the
crazy.
least.
It
Yeah.
doesn't. It makes you think of like some crazed maniac who's holding a bunch of hostages. Instead,
Hmm.
it's like
Hmm.
Bitcoin people sleeping.
Yeah.
And so speaking of just how unwarranted this was, we need to get into what was Ian charged with, and how did he get to that point that they're literally breaking the walls in your house to get to him, and he's still in prison right now.
When they first arrested him and gave us the warrant, there were fewer charges. I think there were 8 or maybe 12, and then they used all like paperwork and stuff that they found to bring down more charges later in a superseding indictment. But the main one, when they first arrested him, there were tax fraud, or no, sorry, fraud is not the right word. There were tax evasion charges, and then there was a main one, which was money laundering, and then also running an unlicensed money transmitting business. And then they tacked on more later, and then they also dropped some before the trial, and then they dropped one after the verdict, which is so weird. But running an unlicensed money transmitting business basically means that you're accepting a currency and giving that person like the equivalent, maybe less a fee of a different currency, and you have to have a government permission paperwork to do that according to them, which is just kind of ridiculous. Like, I think that should be a totally legal business model. Why not? And they are just assuming that the law that that's based on, which is a 2001 Patriot Act era law, that in 2001 they would have considered Bitcoin money. So they have to assume that to take Ian to trial and charge him with this. And Ian's lawyer pushed back on that, saying, well, Bitcoin wasn't even invented at the time. How can you just throw Bitcoin into this law? But the judge just decided, he said, no, I think the word funds, like funds as in like adding funds to your account. He said that I think Bitcoin falls under the word funds, and it's like he just got to decide that for the Congress when the Congress is supposed to be the people that decide that. It's so crazy, the things that anytime our lawyer brought up a thing before trial saying, hey, this is ridiculous because of this, the judge was like, well, actually, no, here's my decision on that. And it's just like, it can be his personal opinion. He knew nothing about Bitcoin. The judge in Ian's case, he believed that the ledger was a third party. He believed that there is like a third party company or something similar that you send your Bitcoin to, and he doesn't understand that it's peer to peer, which is why it's so that people like it anyway. I can't believe he didn't know such a fundamental thing about Bitcoin, and he
Yeah.
still got to be the person to decide things.
It's like the Senate hearing with Mitch McConnell. What's a Facebook? It's like it's like that level.
Wow.
It's like
Yeah.
allowing them to regulate algorithms as
Yeah.
if they know anything going on there. So what?
Yeah.
So what was Ian's business that he was running? I'm very bad at cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and all of that, and so I'm hoping I can help us break this down for people who. I'll be honest. Sometimes when I start thinking about cryptocurrency, my brain sort of shuts off a little bit. So, if we could try to break this down for people, like what is it that Ian was doing?
There was a website called Local localbitcoins.com. And Ian really liked it when it first came out because the idea was that you could meet with people on there who, like, somebody said, "Hey, I want to buy Bitcoin," and Ian is a seller. "Hey, I want to sell Bitcoin to people." And he had gotten a lot of Bitcoin because he accepted it for radio ads, because Free Talk Live, that we've mentioned earlier in the show, is a radio show, and he accepted radio ads from Roger Ver early on in 2010, I think it was. So Ian got a lot of Bitcoin doing that, and he decided that he runs his radio show under his church. He created a free church, which is it's not a made up thing. It's an established thing. If you drive down in New Hampshire, you'll see multiple signs that say, like, maybe it's called, like, instead of Shire Free Church like ours, it could be like Jesus Free Church, and there's like a sign to a building. It's a type of church that rejects the idea that you need a 501c3 filing, that you need to ask the government permission to exist. And we consider Free Talk Live our ministry under our church. And Ian had multiple different things that he considered missions of his church, and one of them was building a orphanage in Uganda. And after he got a large amount of Bitcoin and the price started to go up, he thought a lot more about, like, what does he want to do with this? Like, he isn't a materialistic person, so his idea in his head that his want for what he was going to do with this had nothing to do with gaining more material things. We still drive his 2007 RAV4. I had to make him get new clothes for the trial, and if he gets new clothes, he only goes to, like, Old Navy only. He cut his own hair just by shaving it off his head. Like, that's the type of person he is. He wasn't making more money, but he made it his mission to get Bitcoin in more people's hands. And why would that be important to him, important to a libertarian, a person who takes it so far as to claim peace as their religion, like Ian, is that the more people that have Bitcoin in their hands, the more people that use Bitcoin instead of US dollars, the less we're funding the war machine with our day-to-day purchases. Like, when you buy a cup of coffee and you're using USD, you're basically telling the government, we have trust in this currency, and what the government does to back that currency is literally war. It is not a peaceful thing to be doing, and I think that the fault lies mostly with the government itself. So I'm not saying that you're guilty of propping up the war machine, but you have less blood on your hands
Right.
when you're using Bitcoin, and the more people that get it into their hands, the more they're going to start using it. And Ian also went to so many businesses in town, and he helped them, like, donated his time. He wasn't asking them for any money or anything. He gave them tablets. He explained to them how to use AnyPay, which was a peer-to-peer Bitcoin, basically like point of sale. And we have, like, multiple meetups for people that are new to moving to New Hampshire, because we're part of the Free State Project, which is moving libertarians to New Hampshire. And we only ever used our meetups at places that accepted crypto. We spent it on anything we could. There was purse.io at the time, where you could spend crypto for every Amazon purchase you did. And then the person on the other receiving end, like, sends it to you, and that's gone now. And so is localbitcoins.com, to bring it all back to what his business actually was. He was selling Bitcoin on localbitcoins.io, and then a little later in, he got Bitcoin vending machines, which he put in 3 or 4 different places in New Hampshire. And the feds also raided all of those businesses,
Right.
just
Ugh.
as crazily. Maybe without a bear cap, but they, like, pulled one of the Bitcoin vending machines out with the jaws of life that they use for, like, breaking open cars during accidents when people are stuck inside and stuff like that. They ripped the concrete out of the ground and left the business like that. So
That's
just
crazy. It's like,
yeah.
what they're it's like acting like it's like some sensationalist, like, bank robber holed up in a bank with a bunch of, like, baby hostages, but it's a Bitcoin machine.
Yep.
That's really nuts. I mean, Ian was basically just proselytizing Bitcoin similar to what Roger was doing early on. He's just
Yeah.
telling people how to use it and making it available.
We would go to meetups that were on meetup.com, and the idea was like anyone who ever had in-person questions, wanted to get to know how to use Bitcoin, they could come there. And one woman she's like 79 now. She was like 70 when she met Ian, and she was 75 when she testified for him in court. And I bring that up only to say that they tried to claim that Ian was taking advantage of old ladies, but this woman, she came up from Massachusetts, seeing our meetup.com ad, and she met up with us at the restaurant. And Ian spent so many hours like helping her understand how to use her Bitcoin and access it, because she bought some like strange cryptos and put them on weird wallets that she like learned from Jeff Berwick and stuff like that. So asking no money from her, all he wanted to do every single day was basically get people into crypto and get them to understand. When I first met him, I brought 2 friends with me to go to a meetup, and that's where I first met Ian. He just gave all 3 of us, he asked us to download Edge Wallet, and he gave all 3 of us a little bit of Bitcoin Cash. That's like, he just wanted to get in people's hands, get people excited about it, and get people using it. Yeah, and I still have that.
That's like pretty charming. I met my husband at a libertarian convention, and you met yours at a Bitcoin meetup.
Yes.
I want to go to something that I've seen brought up a lot, which is the stealing money from little old ladies. And there's always like this hook that people will talk about with this case, or they'll talk about a drug kingpin like Ross Ulbricht or something like that. And so was Ian stealing money from old lady? I know the answer to that, but were they allowed to testify at trial, or was it just at the sentencing? I know I spoke to Mark about this, Mark Edge about this a little while back, but I don't remember which one it was. If you could explain that situation to everyone, because I think it was a very important part of this entire thing.
Yeah, it was important because whenever you're in trial and say you're a lawyer and you're the prosecutor, your job is you're not a fact finder. I always imagined before I became a court activist that court would be a lot more about people just saying, hey, this is what happened from my side. Now, here's what I saw. But it's really not that. Your job is to create a story and sell the story to the jury in a way that makes them want to side with you. And the prosecution really wanted to use this idea that old people had been taken advantage of by Ian so he could sell them Bitcoin. So what happened was, on localbitcoins.com, that's where all of I think it was 9 people that the government claimed got taken advantage of on localbitcoins.com, and they said that Ian was a third party in it. They never claimed Ian scammed old ladies, which is good because he didn't. But the same judge that said like he was going to define Bitcoin as funds just because he felt like it, said that those people got to be defined as victims of him, even though they would be a third party. It would be a third party situation. So here's what happened. There would be let's say like this old man, this one specific man. I don't know if I can even say their names if I remembered them, but I don't remember his name. He testified. He went up there and testified that he was buying cryptocurrency from Ian, but in reality, he had gotten an email. It was a fake email claiming to be the FBI saying, or I'm sorry, the IRS saying, you owe us money, we're the IRS, and to get us your money, you're going to follow our directions on localbitcoins.com. So if that's even true, because this old man just testified this, but let's say it's true. He received an email and he didn't verify. The email told him, do not try to call the IRS to verify that it's us. Like, he had to follow that instruction, and then he followed their instructions, and it's really a scammer that sent him the email. He followed their instructions to go to localbitcoins.com, and they told him to go to Ian's page and request to buy cryptocurrency from Ian, and that they would then send it to themselves. That way he would have paid off his like owed taxes, whatever they tried to convince him that it was. And when they told him to go to Ian's page, they would direct them. And this is actually a common scam. So I'm not saying that this
Right.
doesn't happen to anyone. This very well could have happened to this man, but I have my doubts about certain things that these people said because I know for fact that they lied about certain things, and I'll explain. So he gets this email. He's directed to go to Ian's username on localbitcoins.com to buy Bitcoin. And he was directed to tell Ian that he's purchasing it for himself and not for a third party. And then he's also directed to answer all kinds of different questions in a very certain way. And I was with Ian for months before the raid. So the last few months before the raid, I was with Ian every single day, like every single day, waking and sleeping. And he answered the phone to sell Bitcoin all the time. And most of those calls were absolutely legit normal people who never claimed any wrongdoing from Ian. But there was at least one time that I heard him on the phone with a woman who ended up being a lady that I know for sure testified him in trial. And I heard him on the phone with her for like half an hour. I'm just hanging out with him, like kind of observing what it's like when he sells Bitcoin. And he was telling the woman said that so there was two different ways. One would be you don't tell them that you are buying it for a third party at all. And the other way would be you tell them you're buying it for a third party, but you tell them it's like your husband or somebody that you know well. But in reality, it wasn't. So this woman, she was being scammed, but she had actually started scamming other people because the scammer told her, we'll call the cops and tell them everything if you don't start working with us. So
Jeez.
this woman was involved in scamming other people. She never got charged that, even though it all came out in court, which makes me think they like gave her a deal. But that wasn't made public or anything, so I don't know that. But
but it's just so gross because the person actually robbing people just walks free.
And the third party person could be like some scammer in another country, you know, and that person is
the IRS. I am to be taking your call. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And one of them, there was one woman who claimed that she was still in contact with the person and that somehow she figured out he was in Africa. And she said she's still in contact with him. She'd tell the FBI, I'm still in contact with this guy. We could like try to catch him. And they had no interest. She told everybody that in court. And later when Catherine Thibault had to answer about that, she said, it's not our job to just like catch criminals all day. Our job is
Aren't there specific divisions of the FBI who go after like these romance scammers?
I guess
I'm pretty sure. Literally their job to catch criminals.
Yeah.
What she said was that it's not. She would say this in a more slimy kind of way, not a direct quote, but she said basically that there are so many scammers on the planet and they'll be in different countries and they won't have the same IDs and stuff like that as us, so it wouldn't be possible for us to track every single scammer down. That's irrelevant anyway because they literally had more information on this guy than normal. But we know because the Supreme Court has ruled time and time again, police, and that includes the FBI, have no duty to protect you. Whatever their little mission is, it doesn't have anything to do with just keeping people in America as safe as possible. It's going after the people that the FBI and the government, whoever it is, want gone after. And in this case, I really think that it was Ian was getting cryptocurrency out to people very wildly successfully. He had a 5-star rating. You could only have up to 5 stars. And he had so many good ratings that he did have some bad ratings, but it didn't bring him down to 99. So he had 100% good rating, is the way that the local Bitcoins thing works. And the only people that rated him negatively said he requires too much, it's basically like his own KYC for his own know your customers, what that stands for his own benefit. Like he would ask them, are you doing this on your own volition? What are you doing it for? And often they'd say like, savings and stuff like that. But I actually want to get back to that lady that lied. She told him on the phone she was buying cryptocurrency for her husband. And I heard Ian ask her, well, do you know your husband in real life? And she freaked out, getting like annoyed with him and mad at him, and was like, of course I do. Why the heck would you ask me that, and stuff like that. And then she went and testified in court when the lawyers asked her, did Ian ask you any questions about why you're buying Bitcoin? She just said no. She said that, yes, he called me just to say, are you blah, 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 first and last name, and then hung up. And every other person answered that way. They all answered the question, was Ian asking you any questions about yourself and why you were buying Bitcoin from him? They all answered it saying, no, he didn't ask anything. And if he did call me, he just asked my name and then hung up. And that to me sounds coached. And I know for absolute fact isn't true. And
it's wild how people can get in there and they're under, like, everybody's watching you. God is watching you. If you believe in God, you swear on the Bible or whatever affirmation or oath, and you just lie.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's kind of creepy, I think, how people can just get up there and lie, knowing someone's going to go to prison.
Yeah.
I think it's, it's really sad when people get scammed. My grandmother, before she passed, was scammed out of all of her $150,000 by a romance scammer before she passed. And no one ever went after Walmart for selling her the gift cards, and no one ever went after the bank for facilitating the wire transfers. Actually, no one ever went after anyone because they were likely in another country, but they wouldn't have anyway for Walmart for selling that. So, and just the fact that he did the know your customer, from what I've heard previously as well, it was more stringent than what even a financial institution would have. And I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, he also felt bad about the fact that people were scammed, right? And made right with some of those people. Is that correct?
I think what you're referring to is that when the government ultimately, because he got a guilty verdict, when they were going to steal money from him, he requested, in writing, it's in the court documents, that the fine go to the people who were victims of scams that were in the court. So those 9 people, I think it was, or maybe 8. And he requested that it just go to them instead of going to the government, and the government denied that request. So there was that. And he also, there were, maybe another thing that you may be referring to is that there were multiple times, I think 2 times, that he figured out before sending away the cryptocurrency, because basically you're on local Bitcoin, somebody says, I want to buy Bitcoin. You give them your information so they can wire money to you, and then you send it to the address they provided. You send the crypto to the address they provided. So before he released the crypto funds, but he had received dollars, he figured out something was strange with a couple of his transactions. And in this one particular case, this man came and testified for Ian so gratefully. He was like very grateful to Ian, and he was such a sweet man. He's a professor in Massachusetts, and I can't remember his name right now. But what happened was his mother was trying to buy cryptocurrency from Ian, but Ian thought something was weird about it, and I'm not really sure how he figured it out. He held on to the dollars she sent and didn't release it, and then he was getting these texts that were actually the scammers saying, like, what are you doing? Send me my Bitcoin. I sent you the dollars. And he was like, I have to do extra security measures for whatever reason. I don't know what he said to them. And he found this lady on White Pages, found that she had a son, and contacted her son and said, like, hey, is it true that your mom wants to buy Bitcoin for me for this reason, whatever reason she gave? He went to his mom. He found out it wasn't true, and that she was actually being scammed. And it wasn't a romance scam in her case. It was something else. It was like people saying that she owed them money, and that she had to go through and send it through Bitcoin, which is ridiculous. I hope anybody listening, especially if they're older, I hope they know that the government will never or I want them to know, that the government will never ask you for payment of taxes or anything like that in gift cards, in cryptocurrency, unless something wildly changes. But right now, they will not ever ask you to send them Walmart gift cards or anything like that. And I feel bad because some people do fall for that, because I guess when you're older, you might just assume something might have changed. Like, oh, is this the way they're doing things now? Back in my day, they wouldn't do things that way. But this woman, she would have sent her $11,000, which was like all of her savings,
Oh,
over to a scammer, but Ian held on to it and gave it back to her. And her son, who came in, like, he was on the phone with Ian for hours so Ian could get to the bottom of this. He came to testify for Ian because he was so grateful for that. And in another case, Ian didn't figure out it was a scam, but the police of Austin, Texas, suspected that someone was being scammed. I think they went to the police and told him he was being scammed.
mhm.
And it turned out to be somebody who was a customer of Ian's, and he worked with the police. He gave them all the information. He kept himself like in files. Ultimately, they used the information Ian kept in files against him in court by saying things like, oh, look at this lady's picture. She would be holding a picture that said, my name is blah, 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 and I want to buy this much Bitcoin from Ian Freeman, username on localbitcoin.com, and I'm buying it for this purpose. Like, he was covering, not just covering his butt, but making sure that, like, you'd have to go through a lot. You'd have
Yeah.
to be lying to him and spending a lot of energy to do that. And for scamming yourself, who would expect that somebody would go through all that if they were being scammed? Like, he learned about different types of scams on purpose so he could learn to sniff them out. Like, he didn't want people to be scammed. There was a man that he found out had been scammed. His name was, I think, Robert, and he is actually on an episode of Free Talk Live, because Ian found out he was being scammed, and he interviewed him for a whole entire episode of Free Talk Live just so they could talk about this type of romance scam, so they could tell people about how this is not, like, these are red flags to look for. If you see, like, an older friend of yours or relative of yours going through this, like, they're likely being scammed, and to look out for that. Like, and the government used that episode against him because he was just like, he said something that they purposely took out of context, where they said, like, for all you know, you're talking to some dude, and kind of chuckled. And they used that as if it was like it was insensitive and he was actually making fun of the guy, which is not the case.
He's
so
literally
ridiculous.
stopping people from getting scammed. It's
Yep.
just like, I think the Biden administration especially just had this really totalitarian agenda, and they hated Bitcoin. And like, I think the Trump administration really wants to, like, use Bitcoin, and people have different ideas about that, but I think Biden wanted to just, like, squash it like a bug, and was, like, really punishing anybody who was going out of their way to make it work. And that's Ian. That's Ian and Roger, basically.
Yeah,
Elizabeth
that's
Warren.
sorry, go
Oh
sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
she's, like, obsessed. She is
Yeah.
like the most, like, hardcore Karen of Bitcoin and crypto. She should get the Karen haircut. That would fit her head, like, pretty well.
I think she is the government's biggest Karen. I
Yeah.
can't think of a better
Yeah.
Karen than
Big
Elizabeth
Karen
Warren.
energy.
So how, Angela, how has this kind of war on crypto that Biden was waging, how's that sort of changed with Trump coming in? I mean, I
Well,
know we see people getting free, but
Yeah.
that's a big deal.
I mean, we see people getting freed, and they're not going after people. And Bitcoin Policy Institute, I think David Bailey, a bunch of people are pushing for, like, a Bitcoin reserve. Like, everybody's hot to trot in DC to try to get some bill passed regarding Bitcoin, which the Bitcoin community is obviously very divided on that. But setting that aside, it shows, like, they want to be adopters. They don't want to run it out. So mixed views on whether or not ultimately that's a good thing, but it makes me really optimistic that we're going to get everyone else out of prison, and that they're going to stop all this insanity with locking people up. Also, there's been 70% layoff in the DEI section of the division of the Department of Justice. And so, it's not 100% related, but the DOJ is cleaning house, because it's still very much an uphill battle there, because the DOJ was heavily staffed under Biden and Obama. and Trump's first administration, I don't think, did nearly as much staffing. So there's still a lot of work to be done as far as cleaning out like the FBI, and some of the other agencies, but they're at least they're moving in the right direction.
I'm sure people would, I guess some people welcome regulation in the industry because they want to make sure no one breaks down their door with a
Yeah.
battering ram, and they just want to be clear what the laws are. Because
Yeah.
this is a new thing, like Bitcoin is still, cryptocurrency is still a pretty new thing. I know some guidance, I guess, to make sure they're not breaking whatever arbitrary law they
I
decide. Or
mean, like, I would welcome maybe some clarity on scams. Um, like trying to define what a scam is, maybe something like that. Like, I don't want a bunch of new laws,
yeah,
but
I don't either. By the way, I'm just trying to
yeah,
play devil's advocate here.
or protecting people from getting accused of scams. Something, like I feel like there's got to be some healthy balance we can strike where we're not making it harder to do business. That would be really good. Almost like a Good Samaritan type act. I feel like there should be like a Good Samaritan law on Bitcoin where it's like if you're doing your due diligence, and you have people testifying, then you don't get in trouble. That'd be a really good place to start.
Yeah, like, are you conducting? I mean, these are voluntary. I
If
think
you're
they're really.
calling old ladies and tracking their sons down on white pages, you're
Yeah,
one of the good ones.
yeah. But at the end of the day, this whole thing happened. It's wild to me because I guess this was unlicensed. Is a big issue, and that's just wild to me. How far this has gone, and he's still in prison over this thing where all the other things they named, like with this, when they talk about the scamming, they talk about the things with the old ladies and all that. Like, if there was a license, they don't exactly care about that stuff. Trust me, my family knows about that.
It's selective enforcement.
Yeah.
Licensure is something that is selectively enforced.
Bonnie, I want to make sure. I thought we'd have way more time to make sure we could just keep talking and digging further and further into this. Whether I want to know, is there anything else? I know there's a lot of things, but some other important parts about this case. How much longer does Ian have right now? Have there been, some appeals? I think there were. What's that process looking like? Like, where are we at today on this?
If Ian does his whole 8 years, then he would have 6-ish years left because he just crossed 2 years back in the 2nd of October. That was the day he went to prison. And he had some time from when he first got arrested. When they first did the raid, they held him for 69 days before his lawyer could get him out on pending trial, pre-trial. So he's been in there for 2 years and some months at this point. That's probably where it's at right now. 2 years and like 3 months or something. And his full sentence is 8 years, but there's all of these ways that you can lower your sentence by a little bit. It's like up to 80%. That's like the maximum you can lower your sentence by. So I can't do 80% of 8 years off the top of my head, but that's likely how long he would be in there. He did already appeal to the First Circuit of Appeals, so that's the first place you go after trial. You go to this court in Massachusetts if you're in the division, like the part of the United States Ian is in. You go to Boston First Circuit Court of Appeals, and they denied his appeal. They thought about it for like 6 months, and some friends of ours that are lawyers said that was like really crazy, that they took a really long time. I don't know what that means. Everything about his case has been like, oh, this isn't common. Oh, this thing that's happening right now, this isn't like common. Like all of the lawyers would always tell us that. Like they held him in a county jail for 6 months instead of putting him right in prison when he first went to prison. That was so weird, and it's a lot worse in county jail than prison. So yeah, it's really weird. They kept him in a higher security prison for a while when he finally did go off to prison, and just days, maybe up like a week after his co-defendant Aria DeMezzo got out of prison, they finally were like, whoops, we figured out what we did wrong, and they put him in the right prison. I think they were just trying to separate them. Like they did all kinds of very weird things during this whole trial. Like he was never allowed all of the things that people typically should be allowed when you're out before you have not been convicted of anything. You've only been accused. And he got, sorry, alarm going off my phone, but he didn't get to go to things that absolutely were work related because they just wanted to decide that a radio show isn't your job, which is crazy. It's been his
Right.
only job. It's been like enough to sustain him for a very long time. He won the Talkers Magazine Freedom of Speech Award, which is something that Rush Limbaugh, Howard Stern, a bunch of like really big people in talk radio have won. He won the Freedom of Speech Award from Talkers Magazine, and they didn't let him go to New York City to accept it. It's just stuff like that. They did weird stuff. I just feel like it's very targeted. We also found out that one of the first people involved in the investigation was Phil Christiana, who is a FBI agent. And that FBI agent has had something against the Free State Project in New Hampshire for a very long time. When Dave Ridley was one of the first Free Staters here back in the early 2000s, he came to New Hampshire. Phil Christiana came and tried to interview Dave Ridley. He did interview Dave Ridley, but he basically told him, I'll only do a long-term interview with you if you let me record it and post it. And Christiana said no. Then he organized a sting to get Rich Paul, who is an activist in New Hampshire, arrested for selling weed. And then he was facing a lot of time in prison. And Phil Christiana shows up at the Keene Police Department and offers Rich Paul, well, we can drop these charges if you wear a wire into the Keene Activist Center, which is my house.
Good grief.
And Rich Paul said no, he didn't do it. But another thing he did was he came and testified. Phil Christiana came and testified against Rich Paul in that trial, and Ian recorded it because it's totally legal to record in trial at the time, and he posted it on his Free Keene YouTube channel and said Phil Christiana perjured himself in court. And lots of Free Staters followed him after at the courthouse, filming him, asking him questions he wouldn't answer. So Phil Christiana was one of the people that got the ball rolling on investigating Ian for selling cryptocurrency. And Ian was being open on the radio about selling cryptocurrency. I wouldn't be surprised if Phil Christiana literally keeps tabs on Free Staters, including Ian, because he has something against them. Like he obviously, like that whole thing embarrassed him and made him, like look bad. And he, if you're an FBI like special agent, you don't typically get any pushback from the public. Like no one ever has any balls anyway. But on top of that, it's like people typically don't even find out who you are, what you're doing at all. So he helped to instigate the investigation on Ian, and they ultimately named it because they said that they were just investigating him because they believed it was possible that he was scamming people. They named their little investigation Bad Romance. Like, how there's like a code name for all their investigations.
Yeah. Romance scams, bad romance. Yeah.
They did that before they even had anyone. No one went to him, is what I'm trying to say. No one went to the FBI and said, hey, I've been scammed and I need you to help me take down Ian Freeman. I think he did it.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like, oh, maybe we can cook up a romance scam.
Exactly.
And, the judge who put away Joe Exotic, and I've been looking into his case lately. She has like awards from animal rights activists on her wall from taking him out, and speaks at events for locking him up. And I think she might have had some of his personal belongings too. It's like some of these judges and agents make it like their sick hobby to lock people up. They're like, oh, look at like the guy standing at Waco, look at my mass murder campaign.
I think his name is Chip or something.
Yeah. Should those people just, yeah.
So, Angela, I wanted to ask you, what needs to happen to be able to get Ian out?
What's a lot of maneuvering behind the scenes, but we need a lot more people to sign Ian's petition. We need a lot of visibility on this. Ian was like a big deal, and then I feel like podcasts and talk radio just sort of like crosshairs, kind of like Roger. He was like one of the first adopters and proselytizers, and we just need to like remember and show appreciation for the founders of our movement. And so we need a lot more people talking about this case, signing the petition, circulating it to your friends and family, get them to sign it, and get them talking about it on social media.
I know we've got a lot of people watching right now, and I'll just say, reiterate, we were just saying that it probably didn't take that long to fill out the petition. The website's freeiannow.org. A lot of people hanging out with us right now, and like if you care about what we've been talking about tonight, I'd highly suggest everyone go do that. Sorry for cutting you off, Bonnie.
Oh no, I one thing I wanted to say about the like activist judges is one of the prosecutors, because they had like 4 on their side and Ian just had his 1 lawyer. Her name is Georgiana McDonald, and she went on to be I don't remember what the new, like a U.S. attorney in a higher up building. I don't remember what it was. Like she got promoted after,
Yeah.
and she goes by, and other lawyers call her the Bitcoin Queen or something like that. Like, yeah, they literally keep like trophies about stuff like this. Like they all they are motivated by is a conviction. They want a conviction because it's like having a W on their stats as lawyers. And yeah, it's really sick.
I will say that the new people that President Trump has put in the pardon attorney's office are specifically focused on finding weaponization cases and getting them overturned. And there's also a restoration of rights program that's launching very soon, like the first week of January, where people who are convicted felons who may not be eligible for a pardon for whatever reason can still get their gun rights back. So I am really, really pleased that this administration is like looking back on the stuff that the Biden admin has done, or things that were overlooked in the first Trump administration, and trying to right it all. So there's, there's a silver lining to some of this. Hopefully people are going to get their rights back.
One thing I said way before, like anyone around me agreed with me, like I feel like it's just agreed upon now, but I said that I think that it wouldn't have happened if Trump was elected in 2020.
Yeah.
I don't think Ian would have been raided, and I got more and more evidence of it as time went on. But first of all, it happened in March 2021. That's just 2 months into Biden actually taking office.
Yep.
There was like very soon around the same time, that's when Elizabeth Warren started her whole like anti-Bitcoin thing, and I'm bringing her up because, well, she's a Democrat and really good friend of the Biden administration, and there were people who became anti-crypto. Hillary Clinton said negative things about cryptocurrency right before Biden took office. It's like they were signaling to each other like this is going to be our next thing, and they did have I can't remember what it's called. Do you know what it was like Operation? They had
Choke Point. There's
yes.
Operation Choke Point and Operation Choke Point 2.0. Yeah, it was specifically. I mean, that's why like Fire Gary Gensler was such a big thing, with the Bitcoin community, because he was a big part of that.
What's their main motivation for going after crypto? You think? I mean, it's just to protect the fiat currency. Control.
They want to know what you spend your money on. One thing they kept bringing up in court was they were saying that it's a red flag that Ian would tell his customers that he didn't want to know what you wanted to spend Bitcoin on. He said, like in his where he had vending machines, he had like rules up, and he said, don't tell the people working in this store or restaurant what you're buying Bitcoin for, because like the idea is that it's like no one else's business, and he did not want to know. And in my opinion, that's a good thing. It's pro-privacy.
Yeah.
But in the government, including the prosecutors in Ian's cases minds, they're saying that it is just something that only a criminal would do. Like only criminals care about privacy. And Biden is the same administration that they passed those laws that I think Trump has now overturned, that if you spent even just $600, then you had to if you
report it on a 1099, like Biden going after your Venmo.
Yes, exactly. Like if somebody's cutting your grass in the front yard and you're giving them $20, well, if it exceeds $600, they've got to pay taxes on it and be watched. And
right, really like crazy. If you're sending your roommate reimbursement for groceries, like you're supposed to tax yourself. This is like crazy talk.
Wow.
Well, I think I think we said we were going to do around an hour. Angela, is it, I mean, anything else here, Bonnie? Anything else here that we need to make sure we cover before we get out? I think we'll have to do another episode. Is what's going to happen, because I feel like we dug into like 5% of everything that we can go into, probably less than that.
On
Um,
the website for Ian now, there is like a Q&A because a lot of people said this is just too complicated. They don't want to make a decision on it because I can kind of understand. Like, I only want to do things that I actually think I'm doing something that's moral. So I could see if I didn't understand this case, wanting more information. And there is a Q&A now for that because, yeah, people said this is just too confusing. And I said I actually think it's more complicated than like even Ross Ulbricht's case. There's so
mhm.
many moving parts, and I think they do that on purpose. So they like overwhelm people. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. So yeah, everyone needs to go to freeiannow.org. I need to put that up here. Aaron's way better at making sure these things go up on the screen
I
than
would
I am.
say the
So-
biggest win we can get before the midterms is getting Ian Freeman out of prison. And
Mm.
please also everyone remember Roman Storm and Roman Sterlingov. You can go, I think there's Free Roman and Free Roman Now are their websites, two different Romans. You know, they are also in hot water and they're completely innocent. They didn't do anything wrong. And same with the Samurai Wallet defendants, Bill Hill and Keone Rodriguez. So we just have to fight for everybody, you know, and I try to talk to them all, you know, as much as possible. Because it's all related to weaponization of the justice system. Even Joe Exotic, who I know is, you know, like he's not a Bitcoin guy, but the more I've looked into that, I'm like, it's the same thing. It's like feds doing things they're not supposed to be doing and working with left-wing activist groups and
just so they can get a conviction, just so they
yeah.
can get a W.
So
That's what they
we got
want.
to watch out for each other. We got to get rid of the weaponization. I think the Trump administration is on the right track. We just have to clean out this backlog. And if they do it, let's show appreciation to them in the midterms. You know, no Democrat takeover in the Congress or the Senate.
Another thing that people could do is if you know of anybody else who you think is in prison or even got out of prison and now has a rap over selling cryptocurrency type things, then please let us know. You can email me at bonnie@freetalklive.com because me and Angela, we have this like ongoing list, and it's going to be helpful to get more people out if that can like get to Trump. Yeah, we have lots of people.
And I have submitted that list, by the way, already to the pardon attorney's office. So we're working with them to get it all squared away. It's work, but I just feel really good about it. I feel very optimistic and I'm just going to keep plugging along.
Angela, thank you so much for all the work you've been doing, getting these things done. We appreciate that, being able to stay level-headed and work on actually getting things done and not just blowing your top every day like I do on certain issues. That's a good thing. We got to have people like you doing that.
You are welcome, and I believe in it, and like I'm a true believer, and I strongly believe Ian Freeman is innocent. He doesn't deserve this. He doesn't deserve lesser punishment. It's not lesser. It's just he's innocent and he needs to be out.
Absolutely. And Bonnie, would really sorry about everything that you've gone through and Ian's gone through. But do appreciate that you're keeping Free Talk Live going, keeping up the good fight, and really appreciate you being here tonight to talk with us. I really enjoyed this.
Well, thank you for having us on here to talk about it and get more people to hear about it.
Absolutely. So everyone go to freeiannow.org. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us tonight. And I'm going to end the stream and see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.